Good afternoon, everybody. On this Monday, April 28th, 2025, I have all your stories for your rush hour ride home. And on today's episode, we've got Caitlyn Bristo, former Bachelorette and Mirror Ball winning Dancing with the Stars star, discussing who she wants to see on the dance floor. And it's a former Bachelor. We'll share that clip. Plus, it is Election Day in Canada, and we've got some folks that are vying for the highest office, what they are saying, and we'll give any information as it comes in with regard to who's going to win. But also, sadly, no winners here as there was a tragedy in Vancouver. We'll discuss that as well. Our thoughts out to our neighbors of the north. Travis Kelce also in the news for unfollowing Ryan Reynolds. Can you believe this? Why is this important? Well, Travis Kelce dating Taylor Swift, put a ring on it, and Ryan Reynolds, the de facto agent provocateur, who is, some say, the mastermind behind Blake Lively in her lawsuits with Justin Baldoni. So Travis unfollowing Ryan Reynolds is a big deal. We'll get into that. And a toy company is suing Donald Trump. Clearly, this is over the tariffs, the self-inflicted sabotaging of American economy. And speaking of sabotage, we've got a Breitbart content creator explaining why he wants the Scholastic Book Fair to be banned. Says it's too woke. So we'll get into that story. Plus stockpiling. Should you be doing it? Should you not? Of course, items on the shelf it's feared might not be there in coming weeks due to the lack of shipping coming in as the trade embargo essentially is existing between China and the U.S. I say trade embargo because the tariff rates are so high, no one in their right mind would be ordering anything from China right now. So American companies grinding to a halt, not here to sow fear, but here to share the news. All these stories and more happening right now on The Rush. All right, we'd like to start with a light story. Here is Caitlyn Bristo, host of Off the Vine podcast, speaking with Andrew Spencer. And they mentioned Clayton Echard, former Bachelor, and of course, as we've covered, the victim of a fraudulent scam to pretend that, some lady claims she was pregnant with his twin. So he's been dancing as a means of therapy to overcome all of the adversity he's faced. Well, now we have Caitlyn Bristo implanting the idea that Dancing with the Stars producers should have him on the next season. Have a listen.
Me and Greg want to go to Arizona one day and dance with Clayton. I think that'd be really sick.
Oh my God, Dancing with the Stars. Clayton really deserves to be on that show, I think.
Yeah, I
love his
I just love his attitude,
Same.
and one thing about me is just like doing stuff that you love is like you can't knock it.
You could tell he loves it so much.
He's not very rhythmic, but
it's the way,
effort is all that matters.
He's improved tremendously.
Yeah, he has. It reminds me of my teammates, the big linemen and everyone. They would always still try to dance with you, and they just didn't. But like you just enjoyed the fact that
he's kind of like dissing Clayton at the same time. But no, Clayton's improved a bunch, and of course Gabby Windy, his former partner on the show that he, of course, unceremoniously axed her as he chose Susie. But Gabby Windy has tried to slam Clayton for these cringy videos where the guy's literally just talking about mental health and he's talking about overcoming adversity. And a lot of people don't want to hear that, especially from a big, strong man like that. I don't know. I guess it's threatening for people to hear somebody talk about overcoming their adversity. You see a strong, good-looking guy like Clayton and you go, oh, what kind of mental health issues do you have? And it's really not the direction I would like all of our conversations to head to. I don't care if your gender, I don't care about your gender or where you come from. If someone's got strife for mental health issues or they want to communicate ways to better themselves, we all should embrace that. But for some reason, we kind of get a little triggered by it sometimes. Here's an interesting example. Cleveland Guardians have had to apologize to Jiren Duran over a fan incident. He is a outfielder for the Boston Red Sox, and he revealed earlier this year that he tried to, got to be careful how I word this because I'm not trying to trigger any folks, but he tried to take his own life, right? And now someone in the fans at this game in Cleveland tried to use that against him, and the reporter, the spectator heckled him over his past attempt at ending his life. Umpires, as well as Red Sox players and coaches, held him back as he was confronting the man who shouted something at him. I think I think it's super brave of him to discuss his mental health journey and how he overcame things. And I don't care if there's 70,000 people in the stands. I think everyone should come together and really expose those that feel like they can weaponize someone else's triumph against them. So anyhow, good on both teams, the umpires and everybody coming together and saying that's not allowed. Baseball is kind of like one of those, it's America's pastime, right? It's a place where you come together, you cheer for your team, you boo for the other team. That's fair. There's a lot of unwritten rules in baseball. But one thing that I've loved seeing is that when something happens where, if somebody in the stands, uses a slur or says something, everyone else, for the most part, points that person out and says, get out of here. You're not welcomed. And yes, you have your freedom of speech, but it doesn't mean you need to do that here. And they kick them out. They ban them for life. And I think that's a very democratic way that the audience, spectators, have run things in the world of sports. Okay. Sad story coming out of Canada. Vancouverramming attack suspect charged with murder as hundreds attend vigils for victims. I didn't have this story this morning, or I should say last night when I recorded this morning's episode, but a 30-year-old man was charged with multiple counts of murder in the deaths of 11 people killed when a car careened into a crowd at a Filipino heritage festival in Vancouver. Mourners, including the Canadian Prime Minister, remembered the dead at vigils across the city. So again, a very sad day. When this happens, it's just chaos. It's mental health issues. It's trying to, sow fear and terror, really. And it's scary when it happens because, it's like, how do you prevent these things, right? How do you prevent these things? And I don't have an answer to it, but it's a pretty jam-packed day for Canada. I'll say that. Canadian Prime Minister and Liberal leader Mark Carney wrapped up his campaign on a somber note. Here's the speech that he gave. And of course, today is election day in Canada. We'll have the results of that election as they come in, probably not till tomorrow morning. Have a listen.
It is true that President Trump has betrayed Canada. He's betrayed Canada. And he has ruptured the global economy.
Now, the one thing that Trump has done, which is good for these liberal parties, is he's actually made them more popular because people have seen the direction that America is heading in and going, oh my gosh, this is like authoritarian control. We don't stand for this, the stripping away of rights, due process and constitution, all these issues. And actually, the liberal leader, Mark Carney, he in lieu of Trump coming into office and enacting all these executive orders and all the fear and blankets of just anger that exist over our country, Mark Carney's actually been boosted because of that, along with several other elections in other countries where the liberal candidate has had this kind of boost, which, not a good reason that it's happened at our expense, but you can't blame them. And by the way, how come we're not hearing Canada in the news anymore? After Trump said he wants to make them the 51st state and calling Governor Trudeau, well, it's because they didn't back down. They didn't back down to the bully, and they're just moving on with their life. Sure, they're going to take a hit with the tariff wars that are going on, but, so is everybody.
Our old relationship with the United States is over, unfortunately. And America's leadership of the global economy is over. And this is a tragedy. This is still in play, but it is a tragedy. It is also our new reality. We have to recognize it.
Yeah, there it is. It is the reality. Other countries have solidified different trading situations just to get around us. I have a family member who works in shipping, and that family member is like, boy, it is not good right now. Countries are searching for products in other locations to get around the U.S., and commerce will continue, but they're going to be avoiding us for a long time. Even if the trade war ends today, this is just what's going to happen. It's going to be years of goodwill washed away. And for what? Well, we'll see. We'll see for what. Now let's go to the UK news. I've got a few different stories involving Ryan Reynolds. Here is the moment Ryan Reynolds, Rob McElhenney, they all cheered when Wrexham made history as the first ever club to achieve 3 straight promotions. We shared this story this morning, but here's the moment.
Wrexham are promoted to the Championship. A rise that English football has never seen the like of before has been realised here in North Wales.
So there it is. And congratulations. I know what it's like to be from a sports town that hasn't won in a while. My New England sports, we might be a-holes, but it was a long drought before the Red Sox finally broke the curse of Bambino. But over here, what's interesting is the Wrexham football team is worth like 100 million pounds now. I think they bought it for like 2.9 million pounds. So say what you want about Ryan Reynolds, but the guy does have a nose for the goal when it comes to making money. The guy makes money. Now, will he have to pay Justin Baldoni a lot of that money? Could be. Here's another moment there where they did the Gatorade splash on the coach there. A very sticky situation there when you put the Gatorade on the coach. Can I get that with Celsius? Can I get a Celsius energy? Rather than avoid it, I'm just going to open my mouth and try to absorb all of that goody energy. All right, so coming up next, I've got the Kelce story where Travis Kelce unfollowed Ryan Reynolds. I think there's a lot more to this story than meets the eye. We'll have that next. Today's podcast is sponsored by RuLa. Telehealth has made mental health care more convenient and accessible for millions of people. RuLa is on a mission to make high-quality mental health care from a licensed professional easy and affordable. They take most major insurance plans, and the average copay is only $15 per session. You can now get the quality care you need when you need it at a price you can afford. RuLa is committed to supporting you and staying with you every step of the way on your mental health journey. From finding the right therapist to helping you schedule appointments and monitoring your progress, RuLa is there to help. Thousands have already trusted RuLa to support them on their journey towards improved mental health and overall well-being. Head on over to RuLa.com/rush-hour to get started today. After you sign up, they ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Go to RuLA.com/rush-hour and take the first step towards better mental health today. You deserve quality care from someone who cares. All right, TMZ is reporting that Travis Kelce has unfollowed Ryan Reynolds. Hey, in today's modern world of social media, the unfollow does a lot of speaking when you don't want to. And Taylor Swift hasn't said anything publicly about Blake Lively, at least since Justin Baldoni has issued his response to all of her real aggressive claims. So I'm not surprised that Travis Kelce is sticking by his lady here. But what this tells us is, well, first of all, why in the world would Travis Kelce unfollow Ryan Reynolds unless it was because of Taylor Swift not wanting to associate with Blake Lively? This is the type of sort of introduction to the rift that they share publicly. Taylor Swift goes to bat for her friends. She advocates for truth and justice and tries to help others, especially with her large voice and platform. So the silence is deafening, to say the least. Now, this is really funny to me because I get it. Look, I tell you what, if my wife has beef with a friend or a former friend, I got to unfollow that friend's husband too. One of my wife's friends, it took years for them to get me to like her husband, because it's like you're always butting heads. You're kind of forced to be in the sandbox with somebody else. And then I finally started to be friends with this guy, and then they got a divorce. And then I got to unfollow him. Sorry, dude, I'm out. I got to go. I got to stick by my lady. You know what I mean? And Travis Kelce doing just that. So again, and what does Ryan Reynolds have to do with this whole scenario? Well, Ryan Reynolds is seemingly the more powerful duo between him and Blake Lively, and he, of course, used his influence to try to manage control of the It Ends With Us set and wrestle it away from Justin Baldoni, which they were able to do until these hundreds of millions of dollar lawsuits went public, and Justin Baldoni shared his very reasonable side of things, and no tangible evidence has come out supporting Blake Lively really at all. And the big rift seems to come from Blake Lively using Taylor Swift as one of her quote-unquote dragons, Khaleesi's dragons, Taylor Swift and Ryan Reynolds being the two of those. And of course, Ryan Reynolds standing by Blake Lively, but Taylor Swift says, I don't think so. And now we know Travis Kelce following Taylor Swift. They said, hey, shake it off. We're out of here. And that's what they've done. So very interesting stuff. I'd love to know your thoughts on this if you're watching this on social media. Leave a comment. Is this a bigger story than we're making it out to be? Or is this sort of a tremor before the big earthquake, which is Taylor Swift unfollowing Blake Lively? That could be next, and that will be huge. All right, well, let's move on to some other stories. We have a political sports story here, as during a press conference, the press secretary joked that the president was the one who was able to get Shador drafted. We covered this morning, Shedeur, Deion Sanders' son, was slipped into the 5th round of the NFL draft. I believe the 5th round. And here they're taking credit, jokingly, for making that happen.
After the president's Truth Social post, the Browns finally took Shedeur Sanders. Does the president think he deserves credit for Sanders getting picked? And does he think going to the Browns is better than being undrafted?
Hey, all I will say is the president put out a statement, and a few rounds later he was drafted. So I think the facts speak for themselves.
I don't think, and listen, I know they're kidding, and it's like, all right, let's have a light moment. I'm all for light moments. I'm a comedian. I love laughter. But I also think with the literal fire burning of the Constitution, democracy up in the air, we can't get a straight answer. We cannot get a straight answer out of the executive branch when it comes to why they're not listening to Supreme Court orders and things like that. And yet we have enough time to tickle each other's buttholes here and talk about stupid things. It's like, all right, whatever makes you sleep at night, I guess. But I just really feel like they don't have their grasp on where the country is right now. And the country is pissed off. Speaking of being pissed off, I find this fascinating. Now, look, the Democrats will always fight within their group because there's so many subgroups. There's like corporate Democrats that take all the money from the lobbyists. Then there's the progressives who actually have a lot in common with MAGA voters. Hold on, they do. In being that they're kind of like anti-establishment. They want everyone to kind of reap the rewards of a rich country. It doesn't mean socialism and it doesn't mean communism. What it means is tax those that have really profited and let that kind of like basement where, minimum wage and healthcare for all, like give that to everybody so that we can have a good sort of thriving area to then kind of enter the economy and, get out of the deep end, as it were. People don't understand. That's why Bernie Sanders is so popular, because Bernie and AOC represent people that don't take money from big companies, big lobbyist groups. They're not taking money from the big, insurance, pharmaceuticals, healthcare. And they're able to speak truth to power. And they're fighting oligarchy, which is a government ruled by the billionaire class. And for some reason, a lot of people don't understand why it's so popular.
Let me ask you about something that your colleague, Senator Alyssa Slotkin, said. She said Democrats should stop using the term oligarchy because it's a phrase that doesn't resonate with all Americans. Are you missing a chance to speak to a wider audience, Senator?
Well, geez, we had 36,000 people out in Los Angeles, 34,000 people in Colorado. We had 30,000 people in Folsom, California, which is kind of a rural area. I think the American people are not quite as dumb as Ms. Slotkin thinks they are.
Damn. Fighting words. He's not wrong. There is a movement happening right now. It's a populist movement, which is a progressive populist movement where people just want the rich to be taxed fairly, pay their fair share, and live in a world where we can actually reap some of the benefits of being what's considered the richest country out there. How can our country be so wealthy, and yet the average middle-class family can't afford a $400 emergency payment? How can we be so wealthy, and yet our health care is dangled over our head when only certain corporations will give it to us, so we can't do the jobs that we want to do, but the ones that will provide for our families? We shouldn't have to be making those decisions. We should all pay into a system that takes care of it. So you don't have to have a baby and then 3 weeks later worry about your pumping schedule because you got to go back to work. No, like that's not the world anyone wants to live in. The idea that the elites can't understand that goes to show why their, first of all, approval ratings are so low, and they don't understand that people like AOC, people like Bernie, they've got the social credit and the equity that makes it so that people want to listen to them because they're not bought and paid for. Their audiences and their rallies are going to continue to grow as folks are fed up. And there are a lot of people on the right that voted for Trump that want a better option to get away from that. They see that option in the popular candidates like AOC. They really do. The pollings will show that. And people will say, oh, this is why the Democrats keep losing, because they think that they can run on someone like Bernie or AOC. Hey, newsflash, that's the future. That's what people want. That's why the establishment is so hell-bent on keeping people like Bernie out of it. Hillary Clinton and the DNC colluded to keep Bernie Sanders effectively out of the race. They did plenty of election subversion tactics to make that happen. And the people on the left need to admit that, so that moving forward, a once-in-a-lifetime voice like an AOC doesn't get silenced. You know, they say, oh, she's crazy, people won't really like her. And yet people keep showing up. So you tell me what the truth is. All right, coming up next, I'm going to discuss the CEO that is suing Trump over tariffs. Yeah, the toy industry is, you know, the 99% of toys come out of China. And now we have toy store owner saying he's suing Donald Trump over it.
I think the end is near. So, like, what am I more afraid of? I'm more afraid of doing nothing. Honestly, I think the emperor has no clothes here. Strategic uncertainty is the same way of saying we have no plan. Honest to God, somebody needs to stand up and call nonsense here, or use a stronger word. We just can't go on like this. They're going to asphyxiate us.
Yeah, there it is. And of course, Trump put on these tariffs and then the tariff war. It's like it would be bad for businesses if the tariffs were 10%, but 145%, whatever it is, that's just crazy. That's crazy. And what's going to happen is it's not just the business owners, it's everyone who they help feed and all their employees, and the trickle down from that will be devastating as it approaches. Now, there's a lot to talk about with regard to the shipping and what's coming into our country and what's not. And it's pretty damning when you look at some of these ports of entry that are completely just vacated. They are ghost lands out there. And folks are saying, well, now might be the time to stock up. Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to stockpile right now. Do what's best for your family, but I don't think we should be living in a time where we're all like super worried about like what's going to happen. I think most of the food will be okay, but I could be wrong. Have a listen to this.
Chocolate. That's the owner of Jensen's, Adam Zach. We walked through the aisles to find foods made in other countries.
Made in Switzerland.
Less perishable items people could buy now and save for later to avoid spending more when President Trump's tariffs go into effect.
And this is when you could stockpile this for 6 months. As long as you keep it sealed. The hard cheeses are the ones that you could save.
According to MarketWatch, more than 40% of Americans are stockpiling groceries in anticipation of price increases.
I mean, this is just wild. It's wild. You have to remember, this is 100% self-inflicted. This isn't because of COVID where we can't get toilet paper. This is all because of a trade war where we're spending like tariffs. You know, I hate to sound like a broken record. We as Americans are spending the extra money, right? And we're the ones being punished for all of this. And it has grinded trade to the U.S. to a halt. Have a listen to this.
When America's trucks stop moving, what happens next? It started quietly, April 1st, no headlines, no sirens, just silence. Since that day, imports from China have dropped by 36%. At the Port of Los Angeles, down 35%. 80 ships canceled or arrived empty. Across the highways of America, it's even worse. Freight volumes have plunged 14.9%. Thousands of truckers, with no cargo, no paycheck, no backup plan. Volvo just laid off 800 American workers. Independent drivers, the ones who keep this country alive, are watching their businesses collapse overnight.
All right, there it is. And that's where we're at. And there are no talks happening right now between China and the U.S. Trump has said, well, we're talking to them. They are saying, no, we're not talking at all. We are not negotiating with this until the tariffs are 100% removed. So how far out do we have to bleed? Where is the sort of victory that Trump thinks we're going to find from all of this? It's not going to be a bunch of products coming back into our country and made here. That's just not how it works. Maybe with selective tariffs, but not through this process. In other crazy news, there is a guy named Alex Marlo who is a editor-in-chief of Breitbart, which is a conservative news program. And he says he wants to abolish the woke Scholastic Book Fair in schools. Have a listen to this.
The end of the Scholastic Book Fairs. This is going on in the Marlo household. There's been a lot of drama this week for me. It's lengthened the week. It's extended it because it's book fair week at my kids' elementary school. And this is a big hoax and it must end. So Scholastic, who runs these book fairs, is a woke company. I asked Marissa.
All right, so a lot of fun happening in his household. It's book fair week and there's drama. Listen, the Scholastic Book Fair is an age-old, timeless tradition where you take your parents' money, you go to this pop-up bookshelf in a truck, and then you buy a Magic School Bus book and a giant Lamborghini poster. That's what you do. It teaches kids to be a little bit independent with some money. And then, look, you got a couple bucks left over, you get an eraser or a Hello Kitty pen set. I don't know what you do with it. The point is, it's like, are you trying to take away all of the fun of the world? It's not like the Scholastic Book Club is just selling you book. They're so afraid of their kids growing up with different ideologies that they quite literally want to do book banning at the Scholastic level. How about you give your kid a couple bucks and they can buy Magic School Bus Explores Democracy and they can learn a little bit about critical thinking skills. I just think this is absolutely ridiculous. And again, this is just another one of those culture war issues where you try to create controversy where there is none. How about this? This is, to Alex Marlo and to any parents out there. If you're afraid of what your kid might stumble upon at Scholastic Book Club, let them go out there and buy something. And if you have a difference of opinions based on what they're reading, bring them home, read to them, go, explore their lives. That's what you should do as a parent. You should be there to help guide them. Some bumper alleys in the bowling lane, right? Don't just do it all for them. Let them fail. Let them explore. Let them have dumb opinions about things. They're children. And can you imagine being that weird kid who isn't allowed to go to the Scholastic Book Fair because your dad thinks it's a woke, I mean, come on, you're doing more harm than good. I'm here. I'm putting my foot down on Scholastic. I'm all here for it. Come on. Can I go to the Scholastic Book Fair? Let's go support it. All right. Well, that's going to be it for me. Good episode for y'all today. We'll be back in the morning as we continue to discuss all of the breaking stories in pop culture and beyond. We'll see you then. I'm Dave Neal, and this is The Rush.